Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the second day afternoon session of the STTP Phase 3 on AI and international security. The speaker of the session is Mr. Abraham Cyril Issac. He is a joint doctoral scholar at Swinburne University of Technology, Melbourne, and IIT Madras. He holds a bachelor's in mechanical engineering from National Institute of Technology, Jaipur, and postgraduate degrees in business administration and physiology from National Institute of Technology, Calicut, and University of Madras, respectively. He is an experienced thermal power plant engineer. He specializes now in knowledge management with a special focus on a relatively new construct of knowledge hiding. He also engages actively in training and coaching programs. His academic interests include knowledge management, AI and security, Bitcoin, and blockchain and macroeconomics. On behalf of the management and Department of Information Technology, I especially thank Mr. Abraham for accepting our invitation and to share his knowledge and thoughts on the topic. I'm sure that all the participants will feel enriched with the knowledge after the completion of the session. I welcome you all once again to the session and hope that you all will be benefited. Thank you all. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am, for the wonderful words. I'll just share the screen first.
Okay, sir.
So you all can see the screen.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right. So thank you once again for the wonderful introduction. So it's indeed an honor for me to be part of this short-term training program sponsored by AICTE and CSI. I do understand that there are 3 phases and this is a 3rd phase, and this is from an international perspective. Mainly, the talk is on blockchain and later AI, so that's how it's scheduled. I'm Abraham Cyril Issac, as already introduced. My connection with the topic would be with my present stream, that's knowledge hiding. So I'm working in knowledge management, to be specific in knowledge hiding. I've written a paper, especially on certain techniques. Mainly the focus is on the behavioral aspect, but I'm also into the different techniques like anonymization and k-anonymity, etc. So that's where even we are working on something to bring AI into the picture and maybe to mitigate knowledge hiding from the organizational setup. So today's topic, what I have picked is AI and international security. So it's a great moment, especially not only to me, but to all Indians, like having one test series abroad just now. And I will be mentioning, I've just put a word here, but in the fag end of the presentation, I will be just bringing that test series analysis also, so that we do have certain connect with what is going on in and around us and what AI can do to facilitate a smooth functioning all around. So moving into the presentation, what is the relevance of AI? Let me start with this. Now, you might have already come across what AI is, the basics and everything over the 3 phases. You must have at least got a clear picture of that. My intention is just to give you 3 statements here. One is, whoever becomes the leader in AI will become the ruler of the world. That's by Vladimir Putin in 2017. Later, seeing the rise of China and US, to be specific, Emmanuel Macron came up with the idea of recreating a European sovereignty in AI, and that plan started in 2018. And not to stay back, Donald Trump also said that in his executive plan, that AI is of paramount importance to maintaining the economic and national security of the United States. Now, this in itself, when it comes from 3 most important leaders of the timeline, it speaks volumes, especially with respect to what AI is and the relevances. We look into AI and international security. The whole session is divided mainly into 2 parts. One would be AI and international security on a perspective, what it is, especially to uh, war fronts to peacekeeping forces and to military and to the stealth forces. And in the later part, I will also touch upon what AI will bring as certain features or what we see in a day-to-day basis, what AI has or has been doing over the past few years. So that would be the basic agenda for today. At any point, if there is any audio disconnect or there is some technical glitches, you can stop me and just let me know. All right. So as of now, I hope the sound is coming clear. Everything is fine. Just to take a quick feedback. I'd appreciate if anyone could say that its sound is fine, everything is okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. So moving ahead, artificial intelligence and international security. Let me start with the core of the topic, war planning. Now, people generally keep this as a topic to the end, or they feel like they'll address it at the end. But let me start with war planning. Now, when you are dealing with war planners, what is the most important criteria is tools with speed, accuracy, and the speed, and the force, the brutal force. So these three criteria or these three dimensions decide how effective war planning is going to be and how effective the execution is going to be. So AI brings these three dimensions into the table. That's what AI does when war planning is being taken up. So any country which is on a forefront would be more, uh, having a competitive advantage with the tools with speed or with the force or with the accuracy. And we'll see over the talk that there could be or there are certain countries which have created their own niche areas or their own say in terms of AI and international security specifically. They have got an upper hand already, but I'll also take a moment to actually see through different criteria or different country specific certain countries how they are lagging back and how they are going to respond. So firepower at machine speed with say total accuracy will enable the commanders to modify force in a real-time setting. And if that is done to get into a political objective or get successful in a political narrative, then nothing like that. So that's why AI, if you see more of a protectionist approach across the world that's happening. So this protectionist approach will be reinforcing the AI. So this is what we have to understand, that AI, when it comes with autonomy to the intelligence systems. Now, when we look into autonomy, it also has an effect on control, which I'll be talking about later. It will have an impact on the conduct of warfare. There is no doubt about this. Bringing new capabilities into being and totally altering the power equations. Now, if you look into the axis of power, you might have already heard or read or seen the different strategies that are adopted so that to balance or counterbalance the axis of power. The axis of power has shifted from the Atlantic to the Indian Ocean. Means the European hegemony and the American superpower that has eroded a little bit. This century is supposedly a century for the Asian countries with the peaceful rise. We always say peaceful rise of China and peaceful rise of India. So when the axis of power has already shifted and the impact is sudden, then the conduct of warfare, not in terms of the conventional warfare, but in terms of improved warfare methodologies are warranted. And this will bring in the importance, or this will bring in AI into the forefront, which some of them have already adopted it well ahead of the schedule. But some of the people who are, or the countries which have not adopted till now, they are also getting into the boat. So the growing civilian applications of AI also do offer an opportunity to build a tired, multi-stakeholder governance toolkit. Now, when I'm talking about a governance toolkit, it should be multi-stakeholder in the sense that it cannot just have been, or it cannot be just a sort of inclusion where only say a certain segment of people are involved or included. It could be in such a way that designed in such a way that all the stakeholders, let it be a foreman, let it be a expert in programming or coding, or let it be a defense specialist, let it be a politician, let it be a farmer, right? Everywhere this AI has an influence, and every single policy making should have an impact on all these segments of people, and should take these people into the ambit of the policy making. So that is AI and international security in introduction. So can we say that is AI a game changer in compact? So when we are talking specifically with respect to compact, what we see is beforehand, there were Tomahawk series of cruise missiles, air surface missiles, standoff missiles, tactical air defense systems, such as phalanx close-in weapon system, even to extend armed drones are there, loitering in and around. But we do not term them as AI till recent past. So we do have, very sophisticated fighter jets. I'm talking sophistication in terms of the timeline in which they are existed. So in that sense, we don't address generally AI as a buzzword, but things have changed. But does it mean that it is a game changer? When you are bringing in AI, computerized decision support systems and simulators for training have already existed long back. Now, this is not a one-time scenario, or this is not something new that has come over the night. So please do understand, being worked in a power plant for some time, I do understand that the control room experiences, especially with respect to the simulations or the trainings for the new engineers or the graduate engineering trainees, were done with the simulators in the past also. The systems were more analogous in nature, but things have changed in the recent past. But that said, it does not mean that there are no effective technologies or technological advancement over the last period of time. It is there. But what has changed is the influx of data, and that supported by AI. So algorithms that crunch data from multiple sources, they act as a staple in advanced conventional weaponry such as fighter jets. So if it makes this AI makes it possible for Rafale to just fly down from France to India, or F-35 for that matter, or any other equivalent fighter jets for that matter. So the algorithms that crunch data do act as a staple in advanced conventional weaponry. That said, the main criteria or main change that AI has brought is this. It has made a shift, a paradigm shift from rule-based deterministic systems to more data-driven and outcome-oriented systems. Initially, the systems were more deterministic in nature, but now things are more data-driven. So looking into ML programs or deep neural networks or reinforcement learning all add to this, or all reinforce this strategy. AI-enabled machines can extract insights from training data in ways that are not always apparent to human programmers. Now, we would see that a lot of data crunching can be done. There are a lot of good programmers in and around who don't miss out certain subtle details even, but they do have limitations. This is what AI, this is what makes AI more credible and more appealing. So when you are looking at something which the human brain cannot fathom, the human programmers cannot control, or they cannot decode, this is where AI steps in. During operations, they can handle much, much more data volume than the traditional systems. Now, I would take a classic example of Project Maverick. If you have gone through, at least some of them would have read through AI, then they would definitely would have come across this Project Maverick. It's a US Department of Defense project. They can accelerate the processing of this huge volumes of video footage coming in from the ground by the drones they pick up. So this is what the whole Project Maverick is all about. Now, what makes it easier for the US defense system or Department of Defense to pinpoint to a particular target and reduce the number of collateral damages or related issues, or it could be a sensitive area, it could be a targeted zone. So these factors have totally changed. I've just tried to play a video which would give you a small understanding of the Project Maverick. Let me see. I think I would have to share it again.
For just $67, you can make as many videos as you want, and you never need to pick up a camera or use any fancy editing software.
The Department of Defense.
Please let me know if you can see the video.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Is using artificial intelligence from Google to help analyze video footage captured by military drones. Military drones are often equipped with cameras that film everything around them during flight, but the drones collect so much footage that it's nearly impossible for a human to properly analyze it all. That's where Google's AI comes in. The Pentagon uses a Google-developed tool called TensorFlow to comb through that mountain of footage. The software flags places and things that it thinks the military wants to know about. Even though the tech is new, the military is already using it to track vehicles and other objects of interest. The US reportedly rolled out TensorFlow's algorithms to drones in December 2017 in order to support real drone missions in the fight against ISIS. It's unclear how long Google and the Department of Defense's relationship will last, as this is only a pilot project. The move outraged some Google employees who don't want the software used for military applications. But intelligence experts stress AI will be critical for future military efforts.
So I hope you have got an idea. I'll just share the screen again. So I hope you can see the screen again. So that was just an introduction to Project Maven, but something specific to underline or underscore there is that there was an uproar by the Google employees. The Project Maven was supposedly using the AI inputs from Google. So the employees were a little bit agitated, and they were a little bit hesitant to actually give data or support to the defense project, because they don't want to work towards the evil side. Now, this is, we'll have a small extensive discussion on this as well, because AI does bring its own disadvantages. When AI solves a problem, you have to also understand that it is bringing in another problem. And for that problem to be solved, it is again bringing in another solution. So it's some of like the speakers ahead of me would have already talked about this closed loop, where problem and the solution and the problem and the solution with AI, that always keeps on happening. So AI in itself could come up as a problem, and the solution also could come up as part of AI only. So we'll have a discussion of the flip side, or the AI being a double-edged sword at a later point. But what I wanted to stress again is, if we are looking something of in a conventional mechanism, say AI into conventional weapon systems, then computing can be happening at a very closer range in terms of the personnel who is there situated in the ground. He might be able to transfer real-time data. This is where human beings also come into picture. Now, it is not just AI equal to drones. No, that's not the scenario. Now, there are a certain level of human psychology that comes into picture, where they would be more trained, they would be more prudent in the atmosphere, where they can actually judge the behavior of people out there. It might be a cultural difference that would be a key issue there, or there might be certain triggers which would trigger the whole territory. So people who are residing there, or people who are in a combat mission in real time, can send those data. It's not only drone data. So that's what the point I wanted to stress on. Now, this transmission of data will also happen effectively because you don't need high bandwidth channel back to home base. Now, when we say this, we have to also acknowledge this is not with respect to land alone. The hunting of nuclear submarines also becomes easy. This is equally applicable to the waterways as well. Now, when we look into AI or any initial cursory reading into AI will make us bring into, elicit some ideas about the swarms of unmanned aerial or underwater vehicles. But that, again, I said, we should not equate AI to just drones. Some of the dirty, dreary, dangerous tasks of the foot soldiers may also get automated. So this is equally helpful for the people in war bases, in war zones. So this could also change the dimension of conventional weapons or conventional war mechanism or war strategies. Now, does that mean wars will be fought between armies of robots, fleets of ghost ships, and packs of UAs? I don't think so. So this is the conclusion what I can draw, that 10 or 15 years down the line, if you ask me whether wars will be fought between armies of robots, no, that is not going to happen. But there could be an influx of a narrow AI, specifically individual specific, in terms of policy making. There could be a broad AI that comes. You would have already known about the narrow AI and broad AI concept already. The changes, what I'm interested in is battle spaces expand to cover the globe. Now, this is something very critical. Like when more countries are aspiring to be superpowers, when the unipolar distribution is changing to bipolar or multipolar scenarios across the globe, battle spaces do expand. That's a necessity. Now, US will obviously get threatened by China, so they might try to lift India to counter China. So this could be the basic explanation of how battle spaces expand over the globe. Now, they would try to have certain control on the sea as well. That's why South China Sea becomes such a big issue. It's not only with respect to the China's sovereignty that is being questioned, it is also concerning the people far from the west to the east. Now, speed of engagement has also accelerated. With the influx of AI, the necessary changes are that the speed of engagement has accelerated to certain dimension that it is now easy sitting across continents, across oceans, and controlled with ease and finesse. Peer powers compete in information degraded battle environments like in thousands of miles away, as I already mentioned. And the kingpin part is that intelligent autonomy will rise in salience. But when I say intelligent autonomy will rise in salience, I have to also mention the prospect of losing control. When there is autonomy, there is also an equivalent threat of control, loss of control. So autonomous surveillance and combat systems, adaptive communication systems, cyber attack mitigations, counter-attack systems, decision-making systems, all depend on multi-sensor data fusion. And this, if comes under the ambit of AI, there is an intelligent autonomy that is rising, but be ready for losing control. Now, more critically, I would like to emphasize on, once we have dealt with AI's war zone impact, we have to look into AI's geopolitical impact. Geopolitical takes a much broader understanding. The geopolitics in area-wise or zone-wise classification is an art in itself. Now, when you're looking for a fight of economic edges, usually it happens between advanced economies. Now, the problem is with the rise of emerging economies like China. I should not say China emerging anymore, it's already emerged, but economies like India, the advanced economies will try to pull up their growth rate, whereas the emerging economies will try to harness leapfrogging technologies. This is where top countries with relevant capabilities come into picture. And I should name them specifically: Canada, China, France, Germany, India, Israel, Japan, Russia, South Korea, the United Kingdom and the United States. Now, when I name these countries, you should understand that I think apart from Israel, all are part of G20. Another important aspect is if you see from Canada to US in this list, every single country has a Pacific border. Is Asia Pacific or shares a Pacific border? Most of them. Like if I take globe as a circular thing. Now, if we, especially we take Canada and US to have Atlantic and Pacific border. Now, this makes these countries most prominent and strategically located. So these are the important factors. Now, when I'm talking about US, UK, we also have countries like India or Japan or China for that matter. So it's not only a fight between advanced economies. It's a struggle even by the emerging economies that's happening, and it's all for the security states. Now, future of AI rely on less data-hungry techniques, makes AI more compelling and more interesting and more appealing, because new ways of combining cyber and physical capabilities, if it can happen in reality, the less data because whenever I'm talking or whenever we come across AI, the interesting aspect is the level of data appetite. More and more of data is coming. The management of this data becomes very difficult. But in the future, because of the combined cyber and physical capabilities, if we are able to generally reduce the data appetite of AI, then this could be the way to go ahead. AI expansion is also fueled by digital public goods, and AI applications can always solve problems at a scale, not only at a scope. Let me make one thing very clear. This is where our country, India, will gain. Now, India has a very high number of digital identities. It has a very great number of smartphone users, equal number of new participants in payment systems. Now, a couple of years before, the forced digital transformation did not or was not that successful. But I would say over the pandemic, the country has used much more of digital payments, and there has been an influx, or there has been a persistent increase in the new participation in the digital payment system. Now, this is where India is going to benefit with AI, because they have the base set clearly. The numbers are in favor of them. The demographic dividend is in favor of them. But when you go to European Union, the demographic dividend is not in favor of them, but they have to rely on smart regulation and social trust. When you look into something like GDPR, it is the starting of this smart regulation and social trust. Now, let me take the help of some of the established consultants. When I'm looking into the AI-induced growth estimates, I have to understand that Accenture estimates that AI could double annual economic growth rates in 12 developed economies by 2035. I'm not going for a far-fetched 2050, but this is 14, 15 years down line. By 2035, what we are going to see is a doubling of annual economic growth rates. Now, PwC in a similar line estimates that AI will add around 15.7 trillion to the world GDP. And this is just 9-10 years down line, with the biggest global impact, say 70% of the total in just 2 geographies. Mind the amount, 7 trillion USD for China and just 3.7 trillion for North America. This is a projected estimate by PwC. Now, it could affect the pace of the shift and relative power differentials among the major players. There is no doubt about this. States with advanced data economies, with sophisticated risk capital ecosystems, large research mechanisms, or human resource capacities will inevitably and unequivocally have the first mover advantage. There is no doubt about this. But India would not be a party to this. India would be mainly playing with respect to its increased numbers in terms of, as I already said, digital identities and digital participation. When you're looking into AI-induced growth estimates, I have to also look into the old-fashioned weapons of mass destructions coming back. That is very clear, because when you are looking into some countries marching ahead with AI, they are making strikingly different insights, or they are making strikingly getting into more of a competitive edge when compared to other nations. Cyber warfare, digital manipulation of public opinion becomes a common norm. This is because other countries, they resort to old-fashioned weapons of mass destruction, and it also brings in new ideas like cyber warfare, digital manipulation of public opinions, etc. AI definitely can turbocharge cyber weapons, facilitating deep fakes and targeting attacks customized by users. I will have a discussion on this at the later part of my presentation, where I'll be talking about the involvement of AI in our day-to-day activities. When we look into AI impact, mutual trust is a little bit shattered, especially when China in July 2017 came with its next generation artificial intelligence development plan that totally gave China the kickstart. So we should all admire, if China is where, it's mainly because of the vision it has taken, especially in terms of AI, right from 2017. You might be very familiar with some of the very good organizations and companies. Especially, I would like to run two small videos. One is SenseTime. You must have definitely come across DJI at least. SenseTime specializes in computer vision. First, we'll have a look into that. Are you able to see the video?
Yes, sir.
All right. So this just to give a perspective here, this is the post-COVID scenario where the hospitality segment and the hotel segments, how they have changed over time, that is being displayed, how AI is coming into picture, and how SenseTime has facilitated the transactions and the interactions. Please see. So that was SenseTime for you. So we should really admire companies like SenseTime that went way ahead, even taking the pandemic into their favor. DJI is something which we all know, at least, like they are the pioneers, and especially in cameras. They bring out some very good cameras. Even the DJI Osmo Pocket is very beautiful device with very small structure but very compact 4K features. And they also bring in gimbals, like I have DJI Osmo 3, but they have also come with Osmo 4, I guess. There are also the pioneers in drones. So it's not the only company which makes drones, but in terms of quality and quantity, DJI is way ahead. So just want to put things into perspective when we are looking into DJI, when looking into the involvement of China in AI. This is a video that happened in 2016. And please let me know if you can see this. Can you all see the video?
Yes, sir. Yes.
All right.
I spent the most of my childhood outdoors. I would like to let my children have the opportunity to have the same enjoyment. If we want to have that continue, we have to sustain our world. The population by 2050 is expected to reach over 9 billion people here on Earth. What that means to agriculture is that we got to double production.
How are we going to do this? One possibility is bringing more land into production. But that's really not a viable option, because when you bring land into agricultural production, it has a bigger impact on the environment, where you could have acceleration of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere.
Through precision agriculture methods, we can utilize drone technology to help optimize production. So we'll use something like the Nutrice 100 to go fly a field and assess these problem areas in the field and optimize for what's happening this season at this particular soil, this particular spot, and provide the most optimal nitrogen recommendation that will not only increase yield, but on reduced inputs. So where does the world benefit from this? The farmer produces more yield, which gives the world more food, but then he also has less input, so that reduces environmental impact and plays into the sustainable agriculture that we're looking for.
I think farmers in general have a strong sense of connectedness to the land. The drone technology gives us that precise information. It's going to allow us to better characterize what's happening from a spatial standpoint, and then also what's happening to the individual plants.
In our operation, the use of drones has helped us tremendously. We used to have to walk our fields. Now, drone technology gives us data back virtually immediately. It saves us a tremendous amount of time.
There's a number of different technologies that I'm utilizing to create new tools for farmers. The DJI AICTE offers immense potential to where we can now start integrating thermal imagery so we can get additional data angles to find out problems in the field.
In the past, to predict what our nitrogen use would be, we would take soil samples, and then we would also try and come up with an estimate of what our target yield would like to be. So where we may have over-fertilized in the past, now we'll know exactly what that crop's going to need. And so that's going to be a big saving for the environment.
What we really need to look to is improving agriculture for tomorrow. And here at Kansas State University, we teach multiple classes dealing with precision agriculture. The sole goal is to train the next generation so we can constantly be evolving in our advancements.
We really need to increase our yields to be able to feed the growing population. So the work that we're doing here, all in all, I feel is going to be vital to agriculture in the future.
When these students become professionals 20, 30 years down the road, when they're finishing their careers, what we call precision agriculture today will just be normal agriculture tomorrow.
So something which makes the whole video interesting is what we call the precision agriculture today will be just another normal routine for them. So please do understand that DJI came up with this concept well already in 2016. So we would appreciate the rapid.
How can agricultural innovation be taken to the next level? A highly efficient, reliable, and intelligent tool is the key. This is the DJI Agri.
All right, I hope you can see the screen.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay, so this AI impact is essentially when we talk about international security, we should also think in terms of how the sense time has came up with the face recognition, even with the mask, even with the routine technologies, what preferences they have already scanned and scheduled for a particular person, how in terms of itinerary, in terms of their food preferences, in terms of their exercise pattern, everything was well set and well ready. But the problem is it also has a downside, it also has a flip side. Even when DJI talks about building drones, it also possesses, or it brings out, or it elicits a certain threat. Now, when we look into the traditional arms control, the barriers we generally face, if we do understand that, the AI in weapon system, does it lower the threshold for the use of force in international relations? That's what is the key question. Supplemented by, when AI is set into picture, or when the AI is there on the table, whether it would accentuate strategic instability. I've already mentioned the shift of power, the axis of power from the Atlantic to the Indian Ocean. So when this happens, the strategic instability is already there. So whether AI as a mechanism, will it accentuate that? That has to be seen. Whether it would trigger new arms races and empower mainly shadowy non-state actors. Now, if we look into technologies, it's not like we say on a peripheral way, or on a peripheral approach, we say that the US is into AI, or say China is far ahead of AI. So we do say that, but we have to understand in its nitty-gritty. We'll see that we'll call Tesla, or we'll call Elon Musk something related to AI. We generally give names to individuals. We associate fame to these individuals. This is something which is very threatening, especially it can raise shadowy non-state actors coming into picture. Now, till now, it was only between the territories, between the region, between the countries. And even there is a big issue between the countries. There are certain mechanisms like the trade blocks, which again evolved in strongholds like they operate from somewhere. Their existence might be not known. They might be
Participants, please hold on. I think there's a network issue at his end. Sir?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I don't know what happened, like just went off the grid. So I hope now it's clear.
Yes, sir. Yes.
All right, okay. So I'll share the screen. So when you're talking on the barriers, we should be very clear about the role of non-state actors. Now, will AI in weapon system lower the threshold for the use of force in international relations? We cannot say that. It's not that simple. Now, we have already seen adding AI capabilities to hypersonic glide vehicles like China's DFCF could undermine strategic stability. But having said that, there could also be a perspective where we could also say that it can restore stable deterrence by helping peers and opponents' missile defense system. So this is what the flip side I was talking about. The coin has two sides. Now, when AI is observed from one perspective as helpful, it could be equally problematic from the other side of the coin. So the flip side is totally different or diametrically opposite. there is a issue that the AI solves, but the issue itself comes up in a more defined or pronounced matter later, which has to be solved with AI itself. So this is a circular loop I was talking before. Now, when you're looking into disarmament and arms control, specialists who are generally accustomed to with all the aircrafts, the missile, the guns, the tanks, etc., they are not that much accustomed or well versed with data and algorithms. So this also possesses a big impediment in terms of traditional arms control. Now, ensuring security and stability in the age of AI, we have to acknowledge that we are in here for a long time. It's a long haul. There are no quick fixes. Now, when you acknowledge that, it's not a short-term thing. It's not just a 1 year or 2 year thing. It's going to stay here for a longer period. We have to also understand that there should be intensified cross-domain literacy. Now, being a mechanical engineer, a person cannot say that I cannot code or I cannot look into the technological advancements. I will be only looking into the working aspects or the installation aspects. No. Or a psychology background person cannot just stay away from something which is math related. Cross-domain literacy is the need of the hour. So that acknowledgement plus this intensification of cross-domain literacy will ensure that there is stability in the age of AI. Now, when you search for national security applications by AI, we'll see a lot of them. Some of them are tried to categorize. One is it minimizes inevitably the casualties and collateral damages. Now, I am of the opinion that once AI is properly implemented, or it has its own resources in place, collateral damage would be a dead word. Something to justify the faults of an army or a battalion, the collateral damage was picked up as a word to justify the means. But once the battlefield is enriched with AI, collateral damage would be history. Fighting crime, defeating terrorist threats, saving on. There are examples where there is a great amount of time, cost, labor intensive saving that has happened because of AI inclusion. Defense spending has categorically reduced, mainly because the human personnel involvement is less. AI brings in more of active technology into picture, protecting soldiers and their bases. Now, when I say this, or when we understand that the national security applications are in plenty, we have to also underscore one factor, that business of AI has to be everyone's business. So that is why I initially told about a cross-domain literacy that is required across the spectrum. Tiered approach that includes actors at intergovernmental, national, and industry level. This is where all the stakeholders have to be included properly, and there should be any policy plan that coming up in terms of AI should include all the multi-stakeholders into their ambit. Now, ensuring security and stability in AI, we should also look into mutual understanding in terms of discussions on national or international way in terms of testing, validation, deployment, etc. Also, like in case of pandemic, what we observed, how could we cannot conclusively say that we have come across or come out of the pandemic, but the way was pretty much clear. The best practices across countries were shared. So somebody who were able to control pandemic to a certain limit, their best practices were absorbed and they were employed otherwise or employed somewhere else. This should be the way ahead for AI also. Now, it should not be considered as a zero-sum game. When you look at the development of AI by China will be in effect loss to India, that is a zero-sum approach. It should not be that way. Even the EU higher level expert group on AI has identified 5 principles to be the key aspects. Now, that should be anchored around trust and ethical development. It should be beneficence, it should be non-maleficence, autonomy of humans, justice, and explicability. Now, when you're looking into soft governance of AI through engineering standards and codes, this is where I would end the major segment of my talk today. The Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers Global Initiatives. I'm looking into a standard. This acts as a, this have brought up a multidisciplinary resource term. That means they are pooling resources into so that it could be equally beneficial and it could set a level of standard for further use. For the scope for constructing common standards can come across the globe. So if, say, a country is more prone to some of the least quality principles, then some of the other countries can step in and say that these are the benchmarks. It should not be on a hegemonic spirit, but it should be more on a mutual cooperation. Innovative and agile ways of governing the use of AI are needed urgently to head off the risks that are associated with international peace and security. So having said that, I would stress on the aspect that AI has certain effect on army, on combat, on war, but it could be easily controlled and it should be used for peaceful purposes. Now, what we see across in our life, day-to-day activity, I just want to touch upon where we have observed in terms of the security ambit, what on a day-to-day basis as a human being, we all come across cybersecurity. Now, the positive aspect is increased automation and reduced labor requirements, but my point here is to address the script kiddie. You might have heard about script kiddies who are not very skilled to have their own cyber attack programs, but are very aspiringly potent people when they can mix, match, and execute the code developed by others. Narrow AI will increase the capabilities available to such actors. This is the threat. Now, these people were not that potent till now. They were not that destructive in nature, but once this narrow AI comes into picture, their capabilities will increase manifold. This is also to say that there is a possibility of AI to discover new cyber vulnerabilities. Let's say the ML approach could bring in, it can identify in terms of cyber defense and cyber offense, both detecting and protecting and detecting and exploiting. Both the approach will be useful when it comes into experienced setup where new cyber vulnerabilities could easily be tackled by AI. There could be, because this could be mainly because of some certain fuzzy mutations that are happening, and it could be easily caught. Now, when I'm looking into automated red teaming, what we have to understand is there are certain, when AI can easily handle the new vulnerabilities, we should also understand that there are certain old vulnerabilities, let's say SQL injection, still looming largely as a threat. Now, these threats should also be taken care of by AI. So again, if AI is for the social benefit, it should be acting in this way, not in terms of phishing. For example, AI offers the potential to automate target customization, matching target data to phishing message. Now, this will increase the effectiveness of the engineering attacks. So when phishing happens and AI, for example, something like low-cost audio and video forgeries are happening time and again. I'll come to deepfakes very soon, but we have to understand that low-cost audio and video forgeries, which will expand the phishing attack space from email to other communication domains, even to video conferencing, this can happen with the help of deepfake. Now, coming to the information security, we see that AI-driven economics and societal changes definitely have an impact on information security. I would like to stress on this MIT researchers' 2018 finding, where it was quite popular in newspaper as well, that falsehood diffuses significantly faster, farther, deeper, and more broadly than truth on Twitter. This was found out by the MIT researchers in 2018. This is not a big news to us because we nowadays see always negative or controversial videos when people are turning more into bloggers. We see that the controversies and negative news is being propagated faster and sooner without even verifying the authenticity. So this is what 2018 MIT researchers found out, that falsehood diffuses more swiftly in social media platforms like Twitter. Now, when I'm looking into the other societal changes that could be affected in terms of international security, exploitation of behavioral data, something which we have already seen in terms of Cambridge Analytica, where the psychographic micro-targeting based off Facebook data was used to make online footprints, and these assessments were made to tailor messages and content. Now, this is very critical when it comes to political scenarios. This is also an allegation that's going on rounds against Facebook, but not only targeted advertisements or not only targeted marketing strategies, it could also affect the ideologies of the people, or it could affect, let me put it in like this, it could affect in a more pronounced way in targeted ideological warfare. For example, if you are a left-leaning, it could be attacked in such a way. If you are a right-leaning in terms of targeting, in terms of your ideology, that could be the target. So pattern recognition and prediction, again, we have seen ML algorithms on social media platforms that prioritize the content that users are already expected to favor and produce targeted messages at those who are already susceptible to them. When we are talking about this targeted and selective approach, we should also look into agenda setting that has happened mainly because of the successful deployment of bots. Deployment of political bots is more interesting. When they interact with users, you might have come across this, knowingly or unknowingly. When they interact with users, they attack the political candidates. Now, they change or they force on the activist behavior, the political activist behavior. They inflate the candidates, they can boost up the numbers, they can retweet, they can modify themselves or mimic themselves as real humans. Now, troll farms also add to the cost. There is no doubt about it. And over the period of pandemic, people will get more time, and even there are dedicated space and technology that people are engaged in who actually work for this. So this again acts as a security threat. I'm talking on a broader platform of international security. Something which is also interesting are deepfakes. Deepfakes AI systems are capable of generating very realistic sounding synthetic voice recordings. And please mind that it's not only synthetic voice recordings, there could be also video recordings. If you are having a large training data set available with you in terms of the video, in terms of the audio, you could easily execute a successful deepfake. But at this moment in time, say, let's say 2021, deepfakes are easily recognizable as at least to a trained mind. But over and over of deepfakes coming into picture, more and more, like the saying, quantity begets quality. It can become more potent, and it can become more stronger, and it can even dupe trained minds. That could be a possibility 5 or 6 years down the line. Looking into countering disinformation, this is yet another malaise that has happened in not only in our country, across the world. In 2017, Google announced a new partnership with the International Fact-Checking Network, the Pointer Institute, that was to study on this fake news detection. MIT also took this fake news challenge, which resulted in an algorithm with an 80% success rate. Now, there are also companies like AdVerify scan and detect problematic content by augmenting manual review with NLP and deep learning. So there are attempts for mitigating the malaise of fake news, but how effective they are, it's all available in the social media. Now, there are also cases of fraudbot detection and blocking. ML models like Botometer API, a feature-based classification system for Twitter, offer an AI-driven approach to identify them for a potential removal. Now, this could also boost the verification of identity. Let's say we can include blockchain into this. You might have already come across the details of blockchain. I've also written a paper on blockchain. But what interesting here is, in terms of verification of authenticity, digital distributed ledgers and machine speed sensor fusion to certify real-time information and authenticity of images and videos can help to weed out all the doctored data that's available. So this is where a combination of AI and blockchain can perform very well. Now, coming to economic and financial tools of statecraft. Now, statecraft is not that an easy task. When you look into something like counter illicit financing operations, analyzing and learning from a very large, bulky volume data, AI could accomplish tasks not possible in human-centered systems. This could be possible through image recognitions or open source social media information that currently does not inform counter illicit financing processes. But when you start capturing the social media moods, the data from the social media can reveal a lot about a person. If you are looking into a person or an entity or a trust that's involved in counter illicit financing operations, tracking the social media images or track points would be yet another important development in this field of economic and financial tools of statecraft. So AI could improve efficiency and reduce the false positives. That's where AI would be more effective, because it, as I've already told, going ahead, it would not be that much data hungry. Moreover, it would be more effective in terms of identifying the false positives. Now, coming to defense, I've already talked in detail regarding the Project Maverick. Also, you have seen a video how the US defense system came up with Project Maverick, and also the conflict or the contradiction that Google employees had. Some of them had to resign and leave the job because they didn't find it suitable that the AI inputs were used for an evil purpose. No, I'm not telling that it's evil, but the defense was associated or equated to evil. Now, it could also be a case of electromagnetic spectrum dominance, where AI system could try to send signals through a contested electromagnetic environment, where actually there is another system that is trying to jam the signals. So these are things which we already know, even decoys and camouflage, we all know. I'm not going into the technicalities of this, but in larger context of international security, these all are acting as a threat. Please do understand that when it comes to a bigger context of international security, these aspects become very, very critical. Now, intelligence and border security, we do have voice recognition algorithms. For example, I read a case study where US Coast Guard has used AI to analyze voices to build out the physical appearances. Now, this is not a case in one alone. This has been randomly installed across the border patrol that they are taking up, that they are doing it. And this has helped forensically address very false distress signals. Even the Alphabet's Kaggle platform, DHS, made data from Transportation Security Administration available to develop better algorithms to evaluate passenger luggage for illicit and dangerous items. So this is something where it reduces the job of the border patrol, or even to us, if I'm talking about US Homeland Security, to a greater detail, where greater extent, where you will not have that much of manpower to be installed to personally check in, or it will not have that much of risk involved. It will not have that much of time consumed. It will not have that much of disposition of resources into the particular activity. Now, please, when we are looking into understanding data, let's look into the Audrey platform, the assistant for understanding data through reasoning, extraction, and synthesis AI platform developed by DHS and NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory integrates real-time data to make recommendations to firefighters. These are some of the examples of case studies I've picked only to show you that this has already taken precedence, and AI is already there in our system. So to conclude, let me say that AI is already in the system. Now, beforehand, we were having certain level of developments which were not termed as AI. In the beginning, I already mentioned that we had cruise missiles, we had anti-ballistic systems, which were controlled technologically, or we had provided certain simulations, simulator trainings before, but these were not termed as AI. But over the recent past, the AI has emerged so much that we are seeing proper ramifications both economically and politically. To justify my topic of international security, please do understand that when there is a rise of nation, mainly with respect to the technology that is back, and other countries that are not getting the benefit, there could be a possibility of conventional war mechanisms that can come out. Now, this will not happen if you look into international relations, doctrines, and policies. Two countries which generally trade with each other generally don't go for war. But having a background of AI, as I've already talked in detail throughout the presentation, with the stealth, with the power, and with the less time, and with the resources in hand, it could be a cakewalk for some nations to push out others. But then those nations have to fight back for a level playing field, as I already mentioned. That would be very detrimental for the whole globe. So on that note, I'd like to conclude here. Thank you for listening to me patiently. I thank the management again to giving me a wonderful opportunity. More on an international security perspective, I think I could justify the topic. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir, for that wonderful session of yours. Participants, any queries from your end? You can either post it in the chat box, or you can unmute yourself and raise your questions. Participants? Okay. So I think there's no doubt from their end, sir.
All right.
Thank you so much for your valuable session, sir. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and valuable inputs. I hope all the participants would have gained valuable insights on the topic of this session. Thank you all. Thank you, sir, once again.
So I can leave, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you. Participants, the feedback link is posted in the chat box. Please, please use the link to give your feedback, and it is also considered for your attendance. So please fill it without fail. Thank you.